My talk is going to be a bit less technical, I guess, because we're an ethics lab. We look at the ethics of AI and less on the technical side. So this is what I'm going to talk to you about today. First, I'm going to explain what the Sustainable AI Lab is. Then I'm going to go a little bit into the conceptual idea behind it. Why do we need sustainable AI? And last but not least, I'll tell you about what we're doing, our past, current, and also future projects, I guess. So what is the Sustainable AI Lab? So we are a research group located at the University of Bonn's Institute of Science and Ethics. We are dedicated to researching issues of sustainability and artificial intelligence. We aim to be a space to bring together researchers from various fields. So we have environmental ethicists, AI ethicists, care ethicists, and political philosophers. And they are investigating the hidden costs of designing, developing, and using AI across society, and also looking at who bears the burden of these costs. So our overarching goal is to inform public policy guidelines on proportionate and sustainable uses of artificial intelligence. So just to give you an idea of where we are at with the lab, so the lab is a result of Professor Amy von Weinsberg's Alexander von Humboldt Professorship, so a big grant she received last year. She came to Bonn in February and immediately got to work. She hired me in July and I joined as a lab manager, so I'm in charge of organization. I hold the strings together, I make sure everyone's on track. Since then, we've managed to recruit 2 postdoctoral researchers, and we have a PhD student starting in January of next year. We've also started cooperating with independent researchers like Dr. Grie Hasselbach, and we have a wonderful team of student assistants, Jamila Nasheed and Pauline Filbrand, who've been supporting us in the last couple of months. So what I want to say is that we're very much a newly established research group working to put sustainable AI on the map. We're actually going to have our formal launch in a couple of days on Thursday. COVID has put a bit of a damper on it, but I hope we'll still have a successful little event to launch the lab. So yeah, why do we need sustainable AI? Why should we look at this? So as you all know, the world is increasingly confronted with the natural, economic, and social costs of climate change, of biodiversity loss, deforestation, and environmental pollution. And artificial intelligence is, as Ulrike just said, often perceived as a kind of tool to mitigate or even counter these effects. And I think we've seen some good examples of this today too. But as Professor von Weinsberg says in this quote, while there's a lot of research and a growing number of projects directed towards using AI towards good uses, towards sustainability, for example, it's also important, and now it's time to address this, to look at the sustainability of AI. So to look at the environmental and social effects of using AI systems in and of themselves. One of the examples of the environmental effects of using AI is carbon emissions. So as I said, there's not a lot of research on it yet, but there is this quite famous study by Emma Struble and her colleagues over in the United States, Energy and Policy Considerations for Deep Learning in NLP, where they basically looked at energy consumption, and they found out that the training of a single natural language processing algorithm results in about 600,000 pounds of CO2. So that's about 300,000 kilos of CO2. And that's a big number, but it probably doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people. So if you compare it with familiar consumption, which is what the graph does on the right-hand side, you can see that this training of the single algorithm is basically the same as putting 5 cars on the road for their lifetime, and that includes building the car. So 1 algorithm, 5 cars on the road. We're an ethics lab, but why is this an ethical issue? First, it's about inter and intergenerational justice. So we have to think about what implementing AI across society on such a large scale as it's predicted to be implemented, what this will mean for future generations. Second, developing AI models does not only create carbon emissions, but it also comes with a huge need for precious minerals and water, which comes at a cost for the environment and the people affected. And most of this happens in the global south, where precious minerals are mined, where our electronic waste ends up, and where also the effects of climate change are the most dramatic. So vulnerable demographics suffer. Now, I hope I've been able to demonstrate the need for looking at sustainability when we're talking of AI. Now the question is, what are we doing to address this at the Sustainable AI Lab? So the research at our lab is project-based, which helps us look at this problem in diverse settings, and the questions we want to explore span multiple disciplines and levels of analysis. I'm going to tell you a little about a couple of our projects. So first of all, this is Thijs van der Meulenbroek's project. He's a postdoc with us. So Thijs will look at the usage of AI in healthcare in regard to sustainability. His research concerns the different ethical responsibilities linked to the various environmental and related social impacts of using AI and technologies. It's grounded in the awareness that the healthcare sector has always had a global dimension. So if you look at care worker migration, the effects of climate change on people, health tourism, and most obviously recently the pandemics. So using AI in healthcare should take this global dimension into account. And for Thijs, the healthcare sector needs to take responsibility for the environmental and social impacts of the implementation of artificial intelligence. Then Taylor Stone, our second postdoc, he will look at the role of AI-enabled innovations in envisioning and realizing sustainable urban futures. So he's going to take a critical look at potential impacts of AI on cities and city life, as well as the values driving these innovations, what's actually behind it. This will include conceptual explorations, looking at how AI could take shape and also be shaped by urbanisms. And he's also going to look at do practical work and how to use autonomous, adaptive, and dynamic systems to advance urban sustainability. This is one of our research corporations, which is really very much in the starting phase. It's a cooperation of our project lead, Amy van Weinsberg, and Petra Molnar. Petra is a legal scholar at the York University in Canada. She's been working in refugee camps in Greece for a while now, looking at how AI is being used in these refugee camps. And so they are going to work together and reframe the use of AI in refugee spaces as a social experiment. And they hope that this will help uncover new ethical and legal concerns and help the people that are basically the test subjects, the participants in this social experiment. This is Gry Hasselbach's project, Data Pollution and Power. So she's brought together a multidisciplinary group of researchers who are looking at the power dynamics behind the data pollution of AI across the Sustainable Development Goals. Then just to tell you a little about a couple of activities that we've done in the past couple of months. So this conference happened just before I joined the lab. So the team that was there organized the first conference on sustainable AI, where they brought together researchers looking at both sides, basically. So using AI for sustainability, but also looking at sustainability of AI. And there is an associated call for papers, special issue in sustainability. So if there's any researchers out there who would like to submit something, the deadline has been pushed back a little. So you have until the end of February to submit a paper to the special issue. Then the last big activity that we did was that we went to COP, to the climate change conference 2 weeks ago. So we are partnering up with the UN Climate Change Secretariat to facilitate knowledge dissemination and knowledge transfer. And as part of this partnership, they invited us to come to the COP to Amy did a talk, which I moderated. So if you're interested in looking at this in further detail, she gave a much more in-depth talk about the need for sustainable AI. You can find it on YouTube if you just type in sustainability of AI COP or something like that. Here's also the link. Yeah, that's it for me. Thank you very much for listening. Fire away if you have any questions. Otherwise, you can reach me under this email address. I've also put you the link for our website if you just want to browse a little, have a look. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.